harness the awesome power of Godzilla's thunderous roar and devastating tail swipe as the king of the monsters battles other titans to maintain his rule. This is the Playmates Godzilla with Heat Ray, and it is part of the Godzilla Kong the New Empire toy line. Of all the MonsterVerse Godzilla toys that we've been receiving in America, I think this is one of the better ones. At first glance, it seems to be a repeat or a retooled Godzilla with Heat Ray from the previous toy line for Godzilla vs. Kong. In reality, though, the plastic quality is somewhat higher. It feels less hollow and is a lot more hefty. The legs are molded differently. They're essentially swapped. And the most notable difference are the dorsal plates and the tail. On the previous figure, the dorsal plates were made of a more translucent blue plastic, and the tail was dragging on the ground in a sort of slight S-curve. But now the tail is raised above, and the dorsal plates are a more solid plastic, non-translucent. Overall, the details are quite muted. The skin does have some texture on it, and it's been cast in a somewhat glossy charcoal plastic. His head is one of the smoother parts, but as you go down the rest of the body, there's a lot more rough texturing to simulate Godzilla's scaly skin. The most noteworthy aspect of this figure, though, is the huge gash in the middle of his chest and stomach. This is part of a gimmick that I will show you later. Godzilla comes with two accessories. The first one is this piece of skin, which is meant to patch up his battle damage wound. This gimmick is reminiscent of the old Jurassic Park toys and the dino damage wounds that they would receive. To cover the wound, it's easier to stick it in from the top and then press the patch into the cavity, like so. And now the wound is completely concealed. The second accessory is Godzilla's signature Heat Ray, Atomic Breath, whatever you want to call it. I like to think of it as Atomic Fire. If you see this circular nub at the end, this goes into the roof of Godzilla's mouth. You just pop it in, like so. And now Godzilla can annihilate his enemies. The Heat Ray itself is made of a translucent blue plastic, and this is another improvement over the previous figure, which looked more like water, and also it was made of a much more flimsier plastic, and thus it would droop and sag over time. This one is made of a much sturdier material. Godzilla's dorsal plates are covered in a light blue paint, almost like a gradient. Black plastic is nearly frosted at the tips. Now, I noticed a couple of paint slop on mine, but overall I don't mind them too much because they're only apparent on one side. The dorsal plates are made of a flimsier, more flexible plastic, which has been known to bend in some cases, but Mine turned out okay, and perhaps if it ever does bend, I could try to fix it with a heat gun. Potentially. I hope it doesn't ever come to that. Godzilla's articulation are as follows. We already saw his mouth open on a hinge. You can see his pink tongue and some white teeth in the middle. His arms rotate. His legs can move forward. The left leg can move forward this much. Right leg can go forward this much. Both feet can go back this far. And lastly, the tail is on a ball joint. It comes detached in the packaging. Once the tail is stuck onto the ball joint, I believe it will stay. He also has articulation in both of his feet. They swivel. Overall, Godzilla with his heat ray is actually a decent toy. I highly recommend it for kids, but I think some adult collectors might appreciate its simplicity. I feel that more Godzilla toys should come with accessories such as heat rays, laser beams, and maybe even the occasional building or vehicle. This one is a step above the movie Monster series by Bandai in this regard. And it actually has more articulation than most modern Bandai Godzilla toys, mainly in getting tail articulation and the mouth. This concludes this review. I am part of Seijin, and to close off this video, here's a few photographs